Hey everyone, this is Wei and welcome back. Now if you want to learn how to draw, this is going to be a very important video for you because I'm going to go over some of the basic ideas of sketching and drawing, and I'll be just doing this simple apple, but it's going to be very informative, and let's get started. I'll talk about the process along the way. Alright, so let's draw this apple, and one of the things they talk about in art class is always the contour drawing, right? Which is actually pretty dry and pretty boring. So with a contour drawing, what they want you to do is just kind of look at the silhouette, you know, the edges of this apple. So I'm just gonna go all the way around and the idea is to be able to recognize the subtleties of the silhouette, the shapes, the lines that you see, and less on the accuracy of the whole thing, because there's really, this is not where you try to draw accurately. It's just more, you know, whatever little bumps that you see, and then you just kind of go around, right? The leaf I'm gonna simplify. I'm not gonna do all those little edges. So you just kind of do something like that, and I know it looks really ugly, but again, the idea is just to see the overall shape. But you know, this is really dry. I mean, so another way of actually drawing something like this, let's just say, well, this is a very simplified way, is to basically see, you know, the apple, because if you look at the apple, it's not quite round, right? But I can simplify it by being round, and then the bottom can be like kind of like another shape like this. So it's kind of like overlapping these very these primitives, right? So here's the leaf right here, here's the stem. So it's very simple stuff, right? And then once you have this kind of outline, then you can kind of go in and kind of refine the shapes, right? So this is kind of working with primitives. You know, you're turning basic shapes, you're clumping together in order to make more complex shapes. And if you look at it, you know, this apple and, you know, actually most of the things that you see, you can all pretty much break it down, you know, into these kind of simplified, you know, geometric shapes. So it's a very good way of drawing, and, you know, it works well for this apple too, because it is very simple at the same time. All right, so that's like, so this is kind of like breaking down, right? So breaking down with geometric shapes. Now I'm not gonna shade it yet. I'll do some shading later on. Another way to do this, which is a pretty cool way, it's kind of like the envelope way. This is kind of like going, and the reason why they call it envelope is because you're kind of going around it. You just kind of like imagine if there's an envelope all the way shrinking into the apple, and you're gonna start out with this kind of rougher, these kind of a little bit more angular. You don't want to do too many curves right now. You're just trying to create this bounding box around it. So if you can imagine this, the apple would fit in here, okay? So once you have this, then you can go in and refine it a little bit, right? Now you can refine it with more angular lines. In this case, you can actually do this, right? So these are the more angular lines. Or since this shape is actually pretty simple, we can actually go in and, well, let's just say the leaf is right here. So the leaf would be like kind of like this. Again, very angular. All right, I know I'm going over, but I hope you guys don't mind a mess. And then once you have this, then you go in and, you know, kind of clean it up a little bit. Just kind of go over. So now you're actually drawing in, you know, the smoother lines. And this will give you, you know, fairly accurate. I mean, it depends on how accurate you're able to do the envelopes, actually, obviously. But, you know, it just takes time. Accuracy takes time. If you draw a lot, you'll notice that you're getting more and more accurate, and you'll be like, why is that happening? And it's because, you know, your eyes are actually getting better at seeing. You're able to see the distances and relationships and little shapes here and there, you know, that kind of helps you break things up. And once you're able to do that, then things become a little bit easier. So, I mean, just a quick note on accuracy. Like if I take the tip of this is the leaf right here, if I go straight down, do a vertical line, right? And if you can imagine that on the reference, if I take on the reference, I go straight down, you notice it cuts into the apple more. So if I want to correct this, I know the leaf should probably, the edge of the leaf should probably be right here, right? So if okay, let's correct it. Just for the heck of it. All right. I mean, I normally don't do these kind of corrections, but I just kind of want to show you, so if you want to, how you can measure is just basically by taking points and then going vertical or horizontal, on angles and things like that. So once I corrected this, then obviously the stem is too big, right? Because if you look at if you do this kind of slant, it should hit the stem right around here. So now the stem should be there. So it's just like, once you get certain areas accurate, then you can, refine certain areas. And of course, if you're at first laying it out, you'll be drawing a lot softer, and then that way, you can actually erase it a little bit better. All right, so let's shade this thing, and shading is obviously more difficult. Here's how you can shade this apple, and I talk about cross-hatching, and you guys should kind of look into that if you're not too familiar with the whole concept, the technique. So with this apple, you can actually lay in kind of rough in just some of the highlights so that you know that you don't go over it. So then shading, I'm just gonna do it real rough. So just like one directional, right now. So I'm not cross-hatching anything. All right, so I'm just gonna be, okay, the bottom is a little bit darker, obviously, right? Because it's not catching as much light. So this is kind of like starting in the lighter. This is kind of like the first layer, and I go darker and darker and darker. All right, so this is gonna be a little bit darker, and here I'm gonna cross hatch a little bit, so I can get a little bit deeper tone and some variation in the shading. Because if I do everything in one direction, what happens is it creates a lot of motion, and you might not want that in your drawing. And let me shade this real quick. Okay. So here the leaf, you can divide it up. So you can go light first like that, and then here's the darker side, right? You can do the same direction for quick sketches is okay, but if you want it like cleaner shading, cross-hatching is a much better way to do it. Okay, leaf. So I am using a 4B, so it's actually it's a pretty good shading pencil. And then right here, it's terminated right here, the light's falling off, it goes dark. So let's add a little bit more shading. Turning my pencil a little bit, get like a sharper edge, so I can get some kind of variation on the line, so that it makes it a little bit more interesting, right? Looks like it's a little bit more detail. So as I'm shading here, I'm doing some wiggly shapes right here. I'm just kind of wiggle, and this is just to kind of fill in the little gaps here and there a little bit. Okay, and then this is much darker, so I'm going to hit it a little bit harder. So this won't be, very realistic, just because it started out so rough. But I don't really care much for realism, especially for this kind of video. And if you're learning to draw, do this kind of stuff as opposed to spending all your time trying to make something realistic. You're just gonna get a lot more out of it, and trust me on that one. So you don't want to go hours and hours to shade like little marks on the apple and things like that. It's much better to represent it with these kind of bigger, broader strokes, because there's just a lot more benefits to it. Learning hand control, that's one of them, really important. All right, so here's the stem. Yeah, that's about it on this apple. All right, so since I have another apple right here, let me shade this with, let's just say, just in one direction, kind of show you how it looks, because you guys send me artwork and stuff, and this is one of the things I see on some of your shadings. So some of you will shade it like this, just one direction. Okay. So you guys just kind of go this direction, which is okay, but the problem with this is it creates a lot of motion. You know, this thing is kind of like flying off the edge, right? Because it's almost like those kind of speed lines that you do, right? Like objects moving really fast. So in order to get rid of these kind of directional lines, what you want to do is just kind of crosshatch, and that'll get rid of it, you know? It's like even like a few crosshatching lines right here like this, you see how that kind of stops the motion of this thing? And it kind of puts it more in place, you know? And that's why crosshatching is such a great way to shade. But having said that, I mean, you could do it this way. I mean, because I've seen people do it as a style. And actually, it's something that I wanted to try eventually. I did kind of mess around with this kind of stuff. So if you can try to do it in one direction, you could. But it's a lot more hand control. It gets a little bit tricky, but it does kind of create like a kind of unique style on its own. And I know an art director that I used to work for, and that's how he sketched. It's just everything shaded in one direction. It was actually kind of cool. But again, you know, he was really good at it, so you know, it takes a lot of practice and really know what you're doing. But it does create for an interesting style. So it's kind of like, yeah, you kind of see it, right? You can still feel the motion, but it's shaded enough where, you know, it's not flying off the paper. So hard edges like that. All right, so I think that's about it for this apple. I just kind of want to go over the contour and then the basic way of, you know, seeing, you know, primitives into anything, and so that you can draw those shapes, or you can use the envelope, you know, method where it's just kind of going a bounding box, and it's great for anything. You know, you should definitely just try these kind of techniques. So yeah, that's it for this apple, and hope you guys enjoy this. And if you do, please do give me a thumbs up, and I will see you next time.